Hare Krishna. We are continuing with our reading from the book Jaiva Dharma, written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and translated by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust International and Sarvabhauma Das. Today we will read Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is entitled Nitya Dharma, the eternal nature of the living entity, and Naimittika Dharma, his impermanent religious duties. Jambudweep, the Earth planet, is the most precious planet in the solar system, and Bharatvarsha, India, is the most auspicious land upon earth. Goramandala, Bengal, is spiritually the preeminent province of India, and Sri Navadvip Dham is the crown jewel of Bengal. Shining eternally in spiritual splendor, the region of Godruma prospers in one corner of Sri Navadvip Dham, upon the banks of the Bhagirathi Ganga. In days past, the woody bowers of Godruma provided places of spiritual retreat to many elevated and saintly souls. Prajuna Kunja, a simple meditation cottage, was located in the very same arbor where Sri Surabhi Devi had long ago meditated, worshipping Sri Gauranga Sundara within her heart. The present occupant of this cottage, Sri Premadas Paramahansa Babaji, was receiving spiritual instructions from Sri Prajuna Brahmachari, a Bhagavat Parishada, an eternal associate of the Supreme Lord, and was thus known as his Shiksha Shisha, a disciple who receives instruction, but not mantra initiation. Sri Premadas Paramahansa Babaji was an erudite scholar, having mastered all the branches of philosophy and the various scriptures. He passed his days in continuously chanting Harinam, the holy names, in ecstasy. Babaji Maharaj had chosen Godruma as his place of meditation with the knowledge that it is, according to spiritual criteria, an exact replica of Nandagram in Vraja. His daily routine comprised chanting a minimum of 200,000 names of Krishna and humbly offering innumerable prostrate obeisances to all Vaishnavas. He sustained himself by Madhukari, thus begging a little foodstuff at the homes of various cowherds until he had enough for the day, just as a bee takes a small amount of pollen from many flowers. After these days' chores, Sri Premadas Paramahansa Babaji never wasted the remaining time in village prattle. Daily he would read aloud the Prema Vivarta by Srila Jagannananda Pandit, an eternal associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his eyes brimming with tears of exaltation. On these occasions, the saintly devotees from the neighboring cottages eagerly gathered around Sri Premadas Paramahansa Babaji to listen. Hardly surprising, for the text of Prema Vivarta is saturated with rasa, spiritual mellow, and the sweet flow of Babaji Maharaj's voice was so inspiring that it would douse any flames of material misery within the hearts of the entranced devotees. After one afternoon, after completing his prescribed number of rounds of chanting Harinam, Babaji Maharaj was seated in a small clearing in the wooded bower named Sri Madhavi Malati. Upon reciting the Prema Vivarta, he soon felt spiritual emotions stir within his heart. At that moment, a person of the renounced order, a sannyasi, approached him and fell flat before him in utter humility, remaining prostrate for a considerable length of time. Already deep in meditation, Babaji Maharaj was at first unaware of the sannyasi's presence. However, soon coming out of his meditation and seeing the sannyasi offering obeisances, Babaji Maharaj felt overcome with modesty, for he considered himself lower than the straw in the street. So Babaji Maharaj also fell down upon his hands and knees in front of the sannyasi, crying out, "O my Sri Chaitanya, O Nityananda, kindly be merciful to this fallen soul." Then turning to the sannyasi, he addressed him, "Sir, I am very low and without means. Why do you embarrass me so?" After touching the feet of Babaji Maharaj in all respect, the sannyasi stood up. Babaji Maharaj was quick to offer his guest a straw mat upon which he sat in the assembly of Vaishnavas. Babaji Maharaj began to speak with a faltering voice, choked with devotional sentiments. "Dear sir, how may this fallen soul be of any service to you?" The sannyasi put down his kamandalu, water pot, and addressed Babaji Maharaj with folded hands. "Respected Master, I am a very unfortunate soul. Whilst residing in holy places of pilgrimage, like Varanasi, I have thoroughly studied the 6 branches of philosophy, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Patanjali, Uttara Mimamsa, and Vedanta, all of which are related to the Vedas, Brahma Sutra, and the Upanishads. I have thus spent a good number of years in serious debate and contemplation upon the different conclusions of the scriptures. 12 years ago, I accepted initiation into the sannyas order from Srila Sachidananda Saraswati. After my initiation, I traveled widely to all places of pilgrimage, always associating with other sannyasis in the line of Sri Shankaracharya. I passed through the first 3 levels of the renounced order, namely Kutichaka, Bahudaka, and Hangsa. And some time ago I attained the final stage of sannyas, the Paramahansa level. In Varanasi, I accepted the vow of silence and contemplated deeply the teachings of Sri Sankaracharya, who had compressed the essence of his philosophy into a number of statements from the Vedas, such as Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, Pragyanan Brahma, Brahman is consciousness, and Tat Tvam Asi, you are that, calling them the Mahavakyas, great sayings of the Vedas. One day when I was meditating, a Vaishnava saint passed by, loudly singing the glorious pastimes of Sri Hari. I opened my eyes and saw the hairs on his body standing on end, and tears cascading down his cheeks, soaking him. Rapturously he sang Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda. He danced with faltering steps, sometimes tripping and falling to the ground. The sight of him and the sound of his song stirred up such unknown emotions in me that I find it impossible to fully describe this experience to you. Certain deep feelings were touched within me. Nevertheless, desiring to maintain my position of respect as a Paramahamsa, I did not attempt to meet him. What a shame! Fie on my position of respect, a curse upon my luck. From that time on, however, for some strange reason, my mind has been attracted to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later, I anxiously searched for that Vaishnava saint, but without success. I clearly perceived that by seeing this Vaishnava saint and hearing his chanting of Krishna's name, I had experienced a pure joy that I had never felt before, an intense bliss I had never believed possible for a human being. After pondering upon this subject for a few days, I finally concluded that the best thing for me was to take shelter of the feet of a Vaishnava. Therefore I left Varanasi and went to Vrindavan Dham. There I saw many Vaishnavas repeating the names of Sri Rupa, Sri Sanatan, and Sri Jiva Goswami with great feelings of separation and sorrow, absorbed in meditation upon the pastimes of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. They also spoke of Sri Navadvip Dham, going immediately into ecstasy, falling down to roll in the dust. My desire to see Navadvip increased greatly, and after first circumambulating the area of Vrajadam, I started for Navadvip. A few days ago I arrived here in Mayapur, and hearing your praises, I have come to find shelter at your feet. Kindly bestow your mercy upon me and accept me as your servant, making my life worthwhile and complete. Babaji Maharaj, exhibiting great humility, took a straw between his teeth and then spoke with a quavering voice. My dear sir of the renounced order, I am a useless soul. I have spoiled my life in trying only to fill my belly, get enough sleep, and in talk about trivialities. I have taken shelter of this land where Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has performed his many pastimes, and now, somehow or other, I am passing my days. Unfortunately, I cannot perceive the true nature of spiritual love of Godhead, Krishna Prema. You are truly fortunate. You were blessed by seeing a real Vaishnav, and this meeting granted you, if only for a moment, the divine relish of Krishna Prema. Indeed, you are a recipient of the special mercy of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I will remain ever grateful if, in the moments of your ecstatic Krishna Prema, you can remember a fallen wretch like me with fondness. Babaji Maharaj went over to the sannyasi, warmly embraced him, and showered him with the tears of joy streaming from his eyes. The sannyasi Thakur immediately experienced spiritual exaltation through the touch of a pure Vaishnava and began to cry and dance. While dancing, he sang this refrain: Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Shri Prabhu Nityananda, Jaya Shri Premadas Guru, Jaya Bhajana Ananda. All glories to Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Shri Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to my spiritual master, Sri Premadas Babaji, and all glories to the bliss devotional worship. Composing himself after singing and dancing for a long while, Sannyasi Thakur had sat down and started to converse with Babaji Maharaj. Babaji Maharaj said with humility, "O great sage, please spend a few days here in Prajna Kunja and purify me by your association." Sannyasi Thakur replied, "I surrender my body and life to you. Why only a few days? I pray that I may spend the rest of my life here in your service." Being well versed in all the scriptures, Sannyasi Thakur knew well that one should stay in the ashram of one's guru, known as the Gurukula, and there receive spiritual instruction. Thus he resolved to stay on in Prajna Kunja. One day, Babaji Maharaj addressed Sannyasi Thakur, "O Great One, Sri Prajna Brahmachari Thakur, my spiritual master, has shown great compassion towards me and granted me sanctuary at his feet. Presently he resides in a remote section of Navadvip in the village of Sri Devapali, intensely absorbed in worshipping Sri Nrsingadev. Let us visit him today after we have completed Madhukari." That afternoon they crossed the Ganga and arrived in Sri Devapali. As they came down the Surya Tila mound, they saw Sri Prajna Brahmachari inside the Sri Nrsingadev temple. While still at a distance, Babaji Maharaj offered obeisances to his guru, prostrating himself fully upon the ground. Moved by tender affection, Sri Prajna Brahmachari Thakur came out of the temple and, lifting Babaji Maharaj up with both hands, lovingly embraced him and inquired about his well-being. They then sat down and discussed spiritual topics at length. Finally, Babaji Maharaj turned to Sannyasi Thakur and introduced him in detail to Prajna Brahmachari Thakur, who then addressed him affectionately, "My dear son, you have found the proper spiritual master. Now try to sincerely study the Prema Vivarta from the able Paramahansa Premadas Babaji, as is stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 8, verse 128. Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyase Shudra Kene Nai, Ye Krishna Tattvadvaita Se Guru Hai." Quote, "Whether one is a Brahmana, Sannyasi, or Shudra, regardless of what one is, one can become a spiritual master if one knows the science of Krishna." End quote. Following the example of his guru, Sannyasi Thakur offered prostrate obeisances to Sri Prajna Brahmachari Thakur, whom he now saw as his grand spiritual master, Parama Guru. He humbly replied, "Dear Master, you are a Parishada, an eternal associate of Sri Chaitanya. Your compassionate glance can purify many thousands of sannyasis like me, so I beg for your kindness." Having previously never learnt the rules of Vaishnava etiquette, Sannyasi Thakur keenly observed the ensuing dealings between his guru and Parama Guru. Realizing that this was the standard of behavior, he resolved to emulate it unreservedly. Babaji Maharaj and Sannyasi Thakur stayed for the Sandhya Arati, evening worship, and afterwards returned to Godruma. The days passed quickly, and Sannyasi Thakur developed the desire to ask Babaji Maharaj certain philosophical questions. Except for the adoption of the Vaishnava attire, Sannyasi Thakur had all the distinguishing features of a devotee. From his previous training, he had already developed the qualities of Sama, equanimity, Dhamma, sense control, and Brahmanishta, unwavering establishment in the all-pervading, non-dual, absolute truth. Now, moreover, he was developing realization of the divine pastimes of the Parama Brahma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and so, concomitantly, he was gradually developing true humility and meekness. One day at sunrise, Babaji Maharaj, his morning bath completed, sat in the calmness of the Sri Madhavi Malati Mandapa Grove and began to chant Harinam upon his mala, chanting beads made from the tulasi tree. Awareness of his body and the surrounding phenomenal world faded away. He was soon deep in meditation upon the Nishanta Leela, the dawn pastimes of Goloka Vrindavan, in particular those amorous exchanges of the divine couple Radha Krishna in the love groves of Vrindavan, which would be ending soon with the coming of daylight, forcing their separation and return to their respective homes. Incessant tears streamed down his cheeks, and becoming transfixed in his Siddha Deha, perfected spiritual form, he executed in meditation the devotional duties assigned to him in the dawn pastimes of the divine couple in their transcendental abode. Sannyasi Thakur, watching at first from a polite distance, gradually came nearer and with awestruck wonder began observing closely the ecstatic symptoms now exhibited upon Babaji Maharaj's body. Still deep in meditation, Babaji Maharaj called out, "O Saki, quickly quieten that hag of a monkey, Kakati. She will disturb the blissful sleep of our most dear Radharani and Govinda. If they awaken, Lalita Saki will be most upset and surely chastise me. Look over there. Ananga Manjari is signaling that we must do this. You are Ramana Manjari and have been given this duty. You should execute it conscientiously." After speaking these words, Babaji Maharaj fell down in an ecstatic swoon. Realizing that the words were addressed to him, Sannyasi Thakur understood at that moment both his Siddha Deha, spiritual form and identity, and his specific devotional service. Thus he began to ready himself for these new devotional assignments. Dawn was spreading across the eastern horizon. The sun was peeping out, aglow with the radiance of morning, which was enveloping the beautiful bowers of Sri Madhavi Malati Mandapa of Prajna Kunja in its fiery aura. Birds chirped in greeting, and a light breeze carried their songs in every direction. In the early sunlight, nature blushed with pristine beauty. Babaji Maharaj, sitting upon a straw mat, showed signs of slowly coming back to external consciousness. He then began to chant quietly upon his mala. Taking this opportunity, Sannyasi Thakur sat near Babaji Maharaj and addressed him. "Dear Master, your poor servitor would like to ask a question. Kindly soothe his raging mind with your answer. Let your words infuse the divine sentiments of Vraja within his heart, which is terribly seared by the flames of monism and impersonal Brahman realization." Babaji Maharaj speaking, "As you are a most fit candidate, I will try my best to answer any question you have." Sannyasi Thakur speaking, "Dear Master, wherever I have been, I have heard pundits expound the importance of dharma, religious duty, and in response I have always inquired what dharma actually is in truth. However, the sad fact is that all the answers I have received are varied and contradictory. Therefore, now from you I would like to know, what is the true dharma of mankind? Why does each of the different religious teachers preach his particular version of dharma as being the only true religion? If there actually is but one dharma, then why are the numerous religious leaders not in agreement and following that singular spiritual path?" Babaji Maharaj quietly began his dissertation while worshipping the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu within his mind. "O fortunate one, listen attentively as I explain to you man's true religion, his Nitya Dharma. The natural characteristics of a vastu, eternal entity, or substance, are related to its gatana, intrinsic constitution. By the mercy of Sri Krishna, a vastu, once brought into existence, inherently possesses a permanent nature, known as its dharma. Thus the innate nature is the Nitya Dharma, the eternal occupational activity of the vastu entity. However, by force of circumstance or by contact with other substances, the original character of the vastu may apparently be transformed and changed. In the course of time, when this transformed character becomes stable, it then appears to be a seemingly permanent quality of the vastu, apparently being the genuine, original, eternal, and eminent nature. Nevertheless, this new distorted character is not the swabhava, inherent nature. Actually, this new character is defined as nisarga, a condition that only appears to be natural. Appearing to be eternal, the nisarga deceptively usurps the actual swabhava of the vastu entity. Let us take, for example, the substance water. Liquidity is its inherent nature. However, when water freezes to ice, solidity becomes its assumed nature. It's nisarga. Nisarga is a temporary condition because it is brought about by an agent acting as a catalyst. When the agent is removed, the false temporary nisarga also disappears, whereas, conversely, the true inherent nature is maintained eternally. Even if the Vastu apparently transforms, the Nitya Dharma remains its intrinsic nature, latent with a seemingly changed Vastu. And by the amelioration of the alien circumstances, the Nitya Dharma will, in time, surely reassert itself. The inherent nature, Swabhava, is the eternal religion of a Vastu, the Nitya Dharma. In contrast, the assumed nature of a Vastu, the Nisarga, is its Naimitika Dharma, temporary nature. One who possesses Vastu Jnana, knowledge of the absolute reality, is able to discriminate between Nitya Dharma and Naimitika Dharma, temporary material religious performance. However, without this knowledge, a person will falsely consider the temporary Nisarga and resultant Naimitika Dharma to be the Nitya Dharma. Sannyasi Thakur then asked, kindly further elucidate the definitions of Vastu and Swabhava. Babaji Maharaj answered, the Sanskrit word Vastu is a derivative of the root vas, which means to exist or to dwell. Conjugated and made into a noun by the suffix tu, therefore, Vastu means that which exists, being self-evident and perceivable. Vastu is of two kinds, Vastava Vastu and Avastava Vastu. Vastava Vastu is transcendental truth, eternal spiritual substance. Avastava Vastu is matter, temporary objects possessing inert qualities, having but an illusory semblance of the actual eternal reality. The existence of Vastava Vastu is absolute, transcendental reality, wherein the manifested attributes are a display of the actual intrinsic nature, the Nitya Dharma. The Jiva is an element of transcendental Vastava Vastu, and the Jiva's intrinsic nature is his Nitya Dharma, permanent, inherent characteristic. It is a matter of perception. Perception of the intrinsic Dharma is at times accurate and at other times illusory. The statement of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 1st chapter, 2nd verse, Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the benefit of all. Assures us that Vastava Vastu decisively denotes spiritual transcendental truth. Ultimately, the Supreme Personality of Godhead alone is that Vastava Vastu, truly abiding substance. The Jiva is a fractional part of that Vastava Vastu, and Maya, the external potency that produces illusion, is his energy. Therefore, Vastu indicates the Supreme Lord, the Jiva, and Maya, all three principles together. Proper comprehension of the relationships amongst these principles is Shuddha Jnana, true knowledge. There are various conceptions about these three principles, but almost all of them are illusory and mundane. For instance, in the Vaisheshika school of thought, the argumentation and classification of dravya, objects, and guna, qualities, are based entirely upon their avastava, vastu, temporary nature. Sannyasi Thakur continued, Master, I would like to have a better grasp of this subject. Babaji Maharaj answered, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj is a most exalted saint who has received the direct mercy of Sri Nityananda. He once showed me a handwritten manuscript entitled Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which contained the deliberations of Sri Chaitanya upon this topic. In the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 20, verses 108 and 117, there is the following statement. Jivera Swarupai, Krishnera Nityadas, Krishnera Tatasta Shakti, Veda Prakash. Quote, the Nitya Dharma of the Jiva is to be an eternal servant of Krishna, because he is the Tatashta Shakti, marginal energy of Krishna, and thus a manifestation simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. Krishna Bhuli Se Jiva Anadi Bahirmukha Ateva Maya Tare Deya Sangsara Dukkha. Quote, forgetting Krishna, the jiva has been attracted by the external feature from time immemorial. Therefore, Maya, the illusory energy, gives him all kinds of misery in his material existence. Sri Krishna is the Chit Vastu, holy and absolutely spiritual entity. When describing him, many persons use the analogy of the sun. He is the only sun of the spiritual world, and the jivas are the innumerable particles of his rays. It would be an inaccurate parallel to compare the jiva, an infinitesimal part of Sri Krishna, to a rock, a minute part of a gigantic mountain, since the countless millions of jivas who emanate from Sri Krishna do not in any way affect or diminish the absolute wholeness of the Lord. Therefore, the Vedas compare the Supreme Lord to a fire and the jivas to its tiny sparks. Actually, no comparison is truly appropriate. Whether the jiva is described as a tiny spark of a fire, a minute particle of a sun ray, or a speck of gold from the gold mine, none of these comparisons is actually perfect. Nevertheless, if one can overlook the mundane imperfections in these analogies, then the actual truth about the jiva will easily crystallize. Sri Krishna is the infinite spiritual substance, while the jiva is his infinitesimal parts and parcel, and therefore also a spiritual substance. Sri Krishna and the jiva are qualitatively the same, being of the same spiritual nature. However, the Supreme Lord is Brihat Chit Vastu, the complete infinite spiritual entity, whereas the jiva is Anu Chit Vastu, the infinitesimal spiritual entity, the Lord's part and parcel. Although they are one in the quality of their spiritual nature and consciousness, this contrast of quality between the Lord and the jiva is a permanent feature of their natures. Therefore, Sri Krishna is the Jiva's eternal master, and the Jiva is Sri Krishna's eternal servant. This is their natural constitutional relationship. Krishna is the supreme ruler and observer. The Jiva is the ruled and observed. Krishna is independently omnipotent, the supreme controller, and the Jiva's potency is dependent and controlled. Krishna is the complete whole, the Jiva is a minutely tiny part. With his infinitely superior opulence, Sri Krishna is the all-attractive person, who thereby attracts all the jivas to himself. Thus, it is natural for the jiva to be in Krishna Dasya, eternal subservience to Krishna, and this is the jiva's swabhava, intrinsic nature, his dharma. Sri Krishna is the possessor of unlimited energies. For instance, to manifest the spiritual world, the Lord displays his Purna Shakti, full-blown internal potency. The Antaranga Shakti. Similarly, to create the jivas and to carry out the other tasks involved in the organization of this imperfect material cosmos, he employs another of his energies, the Tatashta Shakti, the marginal energy. By nature, the material and spiritual energies are dynamically opposed and are therefore incompatible. The Tatashta Shakti, however, creates an entity that can interact with both the material and the spiritual natures. This Tatta Rekha, the marginal line lying between the water of a river and its bank, is both water and land, being situated where the two meet. Since, in this case, the divine Tatashta Shakti is situated at the margin of matter and spirit, it displays the characteristics of both matter and spirit. It is one principle, yet it displays two natures. The jiva is a spiritual spark, a product of the higher spiritual nature, yet being the divine Tatashta Shakti, he has a nature that enables him to relate to the mundane spiritual energy and be always prone to coming under her influence. Thus, on one hand, the jiva cannot be wholly likened to the pure spiritual nature, which is transcendental to and entirely beyond the influence of the material nature. Nevertheless, on the other hand, the jiva cannot be categorized as material, since by his intrinsic constitution he is spiritual. Therefore, being an entity with innate characteristics different from both matter and pure spirit, the jiva receives a separate designation as the jiva tattva, the jiva principle. In this respect, one must accept the eternal distinction between the Supreme Lord and the jiva. Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, is the master and controller of Maya, who is fully subservient to his will. In contrast, the jiva is prone to come under the influence of Maya at any time. The jiva may be forced to submit to the dictates of Maya. Therefore, all these three principles, Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, Jiva, and Maya, are mutually distinct, eternal realities. Amongst them, the Supreme Lord is described in the Sri Kathopanishad 2.2.13 as Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. Quote, the Supreme Lord is the one supreme eternal entity amongst all eternal entities, and the fundamental consciousness being amongst all conscious beings. End quote. Thus, Sri Krishna is declared the ultimate eternal cause of all three entities, Ishvara, Jiva, and Maya. Constitutionally, the Jiva is the eternal servant of Krishna and the eternal manifestation of his Tatastha Shakti. From this analysis, we can conclude that the Jiva is the Bheda Prakash manifestation of Bhagavan, simultaneously one with and different from the Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The Jiva may be subject to the domination of Maya, while the Supreme Lord is eternally the controller of Maya. Herein dwells an eternal difference between the Jiva and Sri Krishna. The Jiva is one of the Supreme Lord's divine energies. Thus the Jiva's constitutional nature is spiritual, just as the Supreme Godhead is intrinsically spiritual. In this respect, the Jiva and the Supreme Lord are non-different. However, the Jiva and the Supreme Lord are simultaneously non-different and different, and the concept of eternal difference may be seen to predominate. Servitorship to Sri Krishna is the Nitya Dharma of the Jiva, and when the Jiva somehow or other turns away from Krishna, this change of attitude is tantamount to rejection of the Lord and his service. From the point of this occurrence, the Jiva is subject to the domination of Maya because of his neglectful ignorance and consequent forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord. Furthermore, upon thus entering the material world, the Jiva brings with him no historical record of this fall, as this fall originates outside the purview of material nature, thus justifying the use of the phrase Anadi Bahir Mukta, beginninglessly, in terms of material time, turned away from the spiritual realm. Serving Krishna is the Nitya Dharma of the Jiva, and the instant the Jiva neglects and forgets this truth, his eternal nature becomes perverted and progressively enslaved by Maya. In contact with Maya, he develops a mundane nature, Nisarga, paving the way for Naimitika Dharma, impermanent religious duties dictated by material contact. Nitya Dharma, the eternal religious activity born from the inherent nature of the Jiva, is complete and pure in itself. It is constant and flawless. Naimitika Dharma, on the contrary, appears in many diverse forms upon the varying material circumstances, and when expounded upon by the less enlightened men of conflicting opinions. Abruptly, Babaji Maharaj fell silent and began to chant upon his beads. Sannyasi Thakur, who had been listening keenly throughout the discussion, now offered his prostrate obeisances to Babaji Maharaj, saying, Master, today I will meditate on your esoteric teachings. Tomorrow I will return with whatever queries I may have and present them at your lotus feet. Thus the ends the first chapter of Jaiva Dharma, entitled Nitya Dharma, the eternal nature of the living entity, and Naimittika Dharma, his impermanent religious duties. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.